There are children, U.S. citizen children who have been removed from the United States.
And also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other polls that have come out.
Now you have a 4-year-old who's in Honduras who has stage 4 cancer and they don't have their medications.
We've got another CNN panel to hop into, this time largely about Trump's immigration failures, as his numbers there plummet as well as on the economy to match this historic low. So if you can, take a moment, leave us a like on the video. We really appreciate it. It helps us out a ton. And let's get right into the debate.
One of the questions is, what would happen, we asked, this is The Atlantic, if his administration accidentally got the wrong person, a legal resident, or even an American citizen? This was obviously before the weekend events. Let me tell you that nothing will ever be perfect in this world, is how the president responded.
I think what was also telling is thereafter there's another quote from the president saying, well, they're all bad guys, they're all dangerous people. But today, one of the headlines is that there are children, U.S. citizen children who have been removed from the United States with their mothers. Now, that was part of the question that I was asking the White House border czar, who said, look, it was up to the mother to leave. But the point of how they're doing it is so critical here, because when you look through these court filings, the attorneys are saying, sure, the mother decided to do that, but she didn't have a chance to speak to anyone. She spoke very briefly to the father. Now you have a 4-year-old who's in Honduras who has stage 4 cancer and they don't have their medications. And so
the 4-year-old.
The 4-year-old.
And
so as these stories pile up, that's when I think you start to see the outrage build.
And that's exactly it. And to America's respect, the majority of our population, even Trump voters, aren't as racist as Trump is. Now, take that with a grain of salt, but for a lot of them, it's more about ridding criminals or whatever, and maybe more or less they're bought into propaganda that could have racial undertones. But when we're talking about these very clear-cut cases where it's like, hold on, like you can't tell me this is a criminal. You know, these are legal residents being deported that haven't even been accused of crimes, or student visas being revoked for their beliefs, children with brain cancer who are citizens being deported, deporting people against court orders and without due process who also haven't been accused of a crime. A large portion of America has had pause. They're going to have pause. And I think it's incredibly telling that Trump's attempted defense here is to say they're all bad guys, because that's truly just how he sees them, I think.
Broadly, the president has a pretty long leash when it comes to let's get tougher at the border, let's deport criminals. He's fine there. The issue is when you start making mistakes and deporting people who aren't supposed to be deported, or I would also posit in my travels in the country, in places where he did better with Latinos, there's fear in the community. They think he's going to overreach. They think he's going to come for people. Again, I know some people at home will say too bad, but there are a lot of undocumented who are doing work, who have support in their community, who, yes, they did break the law when they came into the country, but they haven't done anything wrong since. And a lot of people say, well, why would you go after them? So the debate continues. And so broadly, this is the president's best issue, sure. But when you get into the nuts and bolts of how he's doing it and how it impacts certain communities, that's when you get the dents. And you do see a drop in his support among Latinos, which is a big part of his sweeping the battlegrounds.
We absolutely shouldn't deport undocumented migrants who have no history of crime or that haven't committed a violent crime or serious crime in the country and are working. Deporting them both takes that money from our tax base. Most immigrants pay into taxes. They are projected to pay trillions over the next decade. Takes that money from our economy that they are producing from working and spending money, and costs on average $14,000 to the taxpayer to orchestrate the flights and everything. Meanwhile, if the idea here is, well, we want to know who they are and who's in our country and what they're doing, we can just give them a pathway to residency or citizenship. Now we know who they are. Now we know what they're doing, where they're at, and they add to our tax base. They add to our economy. They're a net benefit rather than a burden. And instead of losing that revenue, we gain it. And I think that's something that plenty of people are comfortable with. If you don't have the racial undertone of just, we have to get these foreigners out, especially if you can concede the fact that a lot of people come here or are undocumented because of a failure of our system, not because of malicious intent on their point. But at the point that Trump is overstepping, especially among the Latino community, it becomes increasingly worrisome, which is where he loses support even from his hardline immigration stance that might have got him elected.
I just want to talk about the CNN poll and also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other polls that have come out in the last few days. And they are consistent, and we can put this up on the screen, and they're consistently not good for the president. Now, we know what they say in public. We also know how they, especially the president, feel in private. So that's the overall.
But of course, the polls are fake, and if they're not favorable of Trump, we can't trust them. No, but polls do have utility in showcasing a snapshot in time. I always say this, and funny enough, for that exact reason, I think polls actually do carry a lot more weight in showing how the population is feeling on certain policy or things that the administration is doing, rather than predicting an election. Though I'm sure, again, MAGA only thinks they carry weight when they're Fox News polls that say Trump good, because, this Fox News poll here that says Trump bad, can't trust that. But this is just momentum for the Dems, right? Momentum that we need to carry into the midterm, momentum that we need to start building off of right now, make sure we're electing the correct voices, the younger progressive voices willing to fight, make sure we're still bringing the fight, make sure we're doing everything we can to show the American people that we are the party that values the Constitution, values American principles, and are willing to fight for the American people. And then, a few years down the line, when the years come, it comes to be 2028, run a strong candidate. And I think that Trump is setting us up for a Democrat trifecta in a way that the left never could have.